This MCU pitch is my idea for Thunderbolts movie, and at the time I wrote this pitch, it was before any trailers or anything for Deadpool 3, and this will not involve any reference to Sentry, who at one point wasn't rumored to be in this movie, and will not involve anything to do with the Celestials or Tiamat or any of those guys. In terms of spoilers, the most major ones are for Black Widow and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and there's a few minor ones for Ant-Man and the Wasp, as in the one with Ghost in, and also like a reference or two to Hawkeye. The movie would open with Yelena Belova looking at a picture of her family as she prepares to go on a walk with Fanny, her dog from the post-credit scene of Black Widow. She should be remembering essentially the opening of Black Widow, but from her perspective, starting with them leaving and ending probably with the plane scene, or ending with just seeing her experiences with Dreykov. She'd be in Melina's old house and her phone would ring. "I'm not interested, Valentina," Yelena says. Also, I cannot do accents, so I don't know what I'm doing. "After the Barton incident, I won't listen to any more of your lies." "I'm sorry about that. We didn't have a full picture, but well," Valentina replies. "Have you seen your father recently?" Yelena's eyes would widen and the scene would change. We would cut to John Walker in his US agent costume in the back of a black van, along with Ava Starr, aka Ghost, who would be in her suit with the helmet on the bench next to her. "Do you understand the mission?" he would ask. "Of course," she would reply, putting her helmet on as the van comes to a stop. "Capture, detain, get it done quickly." "Good, now let's get going." They would exit the van, which had pulled up outside a two-star motel. Remember, he was a trained Soviet agent back in the day, their super soldier. He even managed to steal from S.H.I.E.L.D. at one point. Don't remind me of S.H.I.E.L.D. Let's begin. They would infiltrate the motel, involving Ghost phasing through the wall and suffocating the guy at the desk before a US agent enters through a window, and they would sneak through the motel until they got to one room, room number 43. They would break in, ready to fight, but would find Alexei, aka Red Guardian, Black Widow's father, snoring loudly on a bed, a round red and silver shield resting against the wall. Next, we'd see Yelena marching up to the CIA headquarters in the morning. John Walker and Valentina would meet at the door. "Yelena," John would say, stretching out his hand. "Nice to—" Yelena ignores him and says, "Where's my father?" "Right this way." They would lead her to a large meeting room where Red Guardian is telling Ghost about his glory days. Everyone's in plain clothes, by the way, and she would be very bored. Alexei would be very happy to see Elena and would say something like, "Come, sit next to me. We have mission." At that, Yelena would raise her eyebrows at Valentina. Then everyone would be seated and Valentina would bring up a presentation and talk through it. The CIA has recently gained intelligence that an ex-S.H.I.E.L.D. employee, reported dead from a lab experiment, has escaped his containment that he had been held in since the accident. She would then bring up a photo. This is Franklin Hall, a Canadian physicist who was doing research into subatomic particles. He was researching gravitons and accidentally opened up a miniature black hole. It closed itself, but the implosion tore the facility apart. Fairly similar to Miss Starr's history, she nods at Ava. However, instead of gaining the ability to phase through matter, Dr. Hall gained full control of gravity and his powers akin to that of a very powerful telekinetic. As a quick note, I know that graviton appears in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but I'm counting that and the Netflix shows as kind of semi-canon, aka they exist, but just as much as I want them to. And this, she goes on to the next slide, revealing a young boy in a purple top with messy brown hair and a scowl, is Joe Kilgrave, son of the deceased Kevin Thompson, aka Zebediah Kilgrave, aka Purple Man. With a single word, he can bend anyone's mind to his will, and his powers are even greater than his father's. "And we need to know if he is too because," Yelena asks. Valentina nods to Ava, who begins to speak. Bill Foster was a biochemist who worked alongside fellow geniuses such as Hank Pym. He was the only one who looked after me after S.H.I.E.L.D. collapsed. "I've heard of him," Alexei grins. He was known as the mighty Goliath. Well, he never actually went on missions. Still, I would have liked to face him, a worthy opponent. He's dead, Ava comments. Oh. As Ava speaks, we see her memory. I was going to visit him last week, but when I arrived at his house, it was in ruins. The whole building had collapsed, as if it had been lifted from the ground and slammed down. Smoke was coming from the basement where Bill had his lab and all of his notes. He had been doing a special research project for the government, but he had never told me what it was. I rushed down the stairs and found him lying in the center of a burning room, barely breathing, his body trapped beneath the rubble. There was nothing I could do. Joe Kilgrave, he whispered. Black hole, power amplification. I'm not leaving you. It's too late. I love you, A. He never finished that sentence. Silence falls, and then an alarm blares. Everyone who isn't standing shoots to their feet, and Valentina clicks a button on an intercom on the table. A panicked voice says, "We can't stop him! A skull! A sword! He's coming! Ah!" The sounds of fighting grow louder outside the room until a silver and blue-clad figure bursts in, holding a sword and shield with a bow slung over her shoulder. "Antonia!" Red Guardian chuckles, throwing his arms out in welcome. "Good to see you." But, Taskmaster replies, "Yelena?" "Hello, Antonia." Yelena replies, "How are you?" "Is that," Valentina asks, "is that the Taskmaster?" I don't know why I just switched accents were. "Yes," Alexi's smile widens. "My little assassin. I'm so glad we managed to remove that chip and bring back your voice. And your skills aren't deteriorating. Even better." "What's going on?" John Walker asks. "Who is that?" "I'm the world's best mimic. And, just to say, you need to improve your defensive stances. Very sloppy. And that temper." "Why are you here?" "To rescue Alexei." "Same, actually," Elena says. Girls, I don't need rescuing. This is going to be fun. Antonia, sit down and listen. Let the nice purple-haired lady finish her speech." Antonia complies, taking a spare seat between Alexei and Ava, and Valentina blinks. "Okay then." Yes, I decided I'm going to just an American accent. She then proceeds to explain how they have an operative following Joe and keeping an eye on him. He checks himself into a hotel in Madripoor, and a few days ago, Dr. Hall and a band of scientists from AIM moved into an old warehouse in the same city. Madripoor, John says. "I hate that place." "Who's the operative?" Elena asks, and it cuts to Bucky. He is in an apartment in Madripoor, looking through binoculars at a lab below. There's a cat lying on his bed. His hair is much longer and beard is scruffier than in Falconwood Soldier, more similar to his White Wolf look. I don't know what the arms situation would be after what we saw in Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. Next, we'd see a jet flying into Madripoor, and the team would all be in it, with Val talking to them from the CIA base. Everyone would be in full costume. The plane would land, and the team would exit to find Bucky. "Good to see you, Barnes," US agent would say, but Bucky would ignore him. "You're Nat's sister," he would say to Elena. "Yes," she would reply. "I'm sorry," he would say. "She was fantastic." Yes, she was. "Why are you working with the CIA anyway?" "My pardon and all related documents mysteriously disappeared, and the whole flag smasher situation suggested I may be a threat, so to make up for that I've been enlisted on this team, Operation Thunderbolts. It's been in the works for quite a while, as I understand. Anyway, Joe's used his powers to secure himself a 5-star suite in one of the many luxurious hotels of Madripoor, and our mission is to apprehend him before things get out of hand." John interrupts. "We'll have to be quick and not give him any time to use his powers on us." The team would soon arrive outside the building, and they would see a whole bunch of AIM vans pulling up. Goons in comic-accurate hazmat suits would get out, as well as a squadron of extremist soldiers. Because in Iron Man 3, AIM were the villains and the extremists were with them. Well, it was kind of AIM. Well, yeah, it was AIM. But yeah, if you haven't watched that movie, it's an alright movie. Essentially, the team would storm the building and fight their way up to the top, but only John and Yelena would actually get to the top, and the others would be caught up fighting AIM agents. Joe would be watching TV as they crept in. "Don't move," he would say, and the two Thunderbolts would freeze with only their heads being unaffected. "We're here to take you to safety," John Walker would say. Release us and come with us. Some very bad people are after you. Yelena would have a small flashback to when she first met and talked to Dreykov, with him saying something similar to her. She was small and scared, and he'd offer her a lollipop. What he's trying to say is that we want to protect you and don't want you to be harmed. We'll keep you safe. Joe would stand up and face them, and his eyes would be glowing purple. He would force the US agent to act like a monkey, hopping around and eating a banana, while he made Yelena twirl round and round like a ballerina. We would get a few more small flashbacks to her childhood as tears rolled down her cheek. Then, the floor-to-ceiling window would shatter as the glass is pulled outwards and disappears. Graviton, looking very comic accurate, would rise up and float in. Well done, Joe. You're even stronger than I thought. Now we should probably get going. I'll deal with these fools. It might get a bit messy. Bunch of AIM guys would rush in and escort Joe out. And we'd cut to the rest of the Thunderbolts fighting the extremist goons, with Ghost and Taskmaster working well together while Bucky and Alexei fought back to back, with Alexei talking about when he met Captain America. Back to the apartment. When Joe's escort had left, Yelena and John would be released from Joe's hold and start to run at Graviton. John would hurl his shield, but Graviton would flick his hand and send it flying back. John would manage to dodge, but with a wave of Graviton's hand, Yelena and US Agent would fall onto their back or front and start to slide towards the open window as if being pulled by gravity. Scrambling for handholds, they'd barely managed to stop themselves from being pulled into the void. I'm not a director by any means, but the camera would shift to their perspective to seem like they are grabbing onto a thing like a sofa or counter, which still has normal gravity, but to them the floor would essentially be a wall, if you get my meaning. The pull would grow stronger, but the rest of the Thunderbolts would burst in. Graviton would fight them by hurling things at them, and causing them to levitate before slamming them down. Ghost would turn intangible to phase through a chair, but then he would chuck a sofa at her with one hand, or clenching his other fist, keeping her tangible. I'm pretty sure he's forced vision out of intangibility before in the comics. Then Graviton would send an explosive arrow back at Taskmaster, sending her flying into Bucky, before pulling down a wall on top of both of them. But suddenly, a red and silver shield would slam into Graviton's head, dazing him. John and Yelena would be returned to their normal gravity and would get to their feet just in time to see Red Guardian barreling into Graviton and sending them both flying out of the window. And that's all for part 1 of my Thunderbolts pitch. Part 2 should be coming at some point. I've written it, but there's 2 other videos I want to work on between posting this and posting second half, and recording it will take a while, so yeah. But if you enjoyed this, consider dropping me a like and subscribing, and checking out my other Marvel stuff, or just other stuff in general. Ta-ta!